Welcome into Bengals Breakdown. Once again, your host Stone Shields on hand. On today's video, we are going to be previewing the Bengals and the Chargers, which of course is going to take place on Sunday Night Football here in Week 11. But first, I have a question for you guys. Will the Bengals win on Sunday? Type Y for yes or N for no. Be honest with us in the comments section. We're looking to make this the most commented on video of November so far. Looking for well over 200 comments in order for that to happen. The person that comments the most on today's video will get a shout out in a future video. And we do have a shout out from a previous most comments winner that will be coming at the end of our video here today. So stay tuned for that. But get in the comment section. Let me know, will the Bengals win on Sunday in Los Angeles against those Los Angeles Chargers? Type Y for yes or N for no. As I mentioned, going to be previewing the Bengals and the Chargers here on today's edition of Bengals Breakdown. The Bengals are underdogs in this football game going up against the Los Angeles Chargers. By the way, doing a little solo producing here on today's edition of Bengals Breakdown. So if you see me look down or whatever the case may be, just trying to do multiple things at once here as we progress through our show. But I'm kind of interested to see that the Bengals are underdogs in this game. Of course, having to fly all the way across country, play in California, play in SoFi Stadium. Of course, the location where they lost the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. So hopefully no bad vibes come along with that. But this is definitely a must-win game for the Bengals. Now, luckily for Cincinnati, they've been in these spots a couple of times throughout the year to this point. The Carolina game, right? Week 4, that felt like a must-win game. Absolutely. A couple weeks later on Sunday Night Football as well. Going to the Meadowlands, taking on the Giants. That was a must-win game. The Raiders a couple of weeks ago, also a must-win game. So they've had their backs against the wall here throughout this season. And so far, they have came out on top. But when you take a look at what is coming up for this football team, we talked about kind of going into that Raiders game, how the Bengals needed to get 2 out of 3 going into the bye. Took care of the Raiders, lost a heartbreaker on Thursday night against Baltimore. Absolutely have to win this game, get a little bit momentum, go into the bye, get your minds right, get your bodies right, and get ready to really tackle the latter chunk of the season. So it is imperative the Cincinnati Bengals win this football game. I do have some confidence that they're going to come out on top. Again, going to be previewing this game here on today's show. But you got the Pittsburgh Steelers twice down the stretch. Those are going to be incredibly tough games, obviously. But there's some games throughout your schedule where you're going to be favored in. It's just about you going out there and executing your job. As far as the AFC North goes, I think the Bengals can essentially kiss their division title hopes goodbye. Unfortunately, that's always the goal coming into a season, right? Trying to win your division. But that doesn't appear as though that is going to be the route for Cincinnati to make the postseason here in 2024, just given how good Pittsburgh and Baltimore are playing as far as their records go. Like, you're starting to get to that point where you're probably a little bit too far behind in order to make something happen in the division. Again, you do play Pittsburgh twice, so if they kind of go through a lull here and then you're able to beat them twice, maybe you can kind of vault your way back into it. But if the Bengals are going to mess around and win the AFC North, they really need a miracle in order for that to happen. But as far as the wild card goes, taking a look at this AFC playoff picture here as we head in to Week 3, I think you've got a lot of opportunity to squeak in and get that last spot. Obviously, we all dislike the Kansas City Chiefs, right? That goes without saying. But that victory by them last Sunday against Denver was absolutely massive because the Broncos are really that team that you're battling for that last playoff spot. By the way, you are going to play the Denver Broncos in December before this season is over. So the fact that Kansas City was able to block that field goal as time expired really was a big boost for the Cincinnati Bengals team. Denver falls to 5-5, and you're only a game away from catching them. And as I mentioned, you will have an opportunity to play them head-to-head later on in the season. So the Bengals absolutely not dead yet, but this game against Los Angeles here, primetime game, island game, against a good football team, by the way. See the Chargers sitting there at 6-3 will be critical in determining how this Bengals season ultimately unfolds here in 2024. Leads us to the pinned comment of today's video. Will the Bengals make the playoffs? Be honest with us in the comment section. Something we've asked, of course, throughout the entirety of the season to this point. But type P for playoffs or H for home. As I mentioned, be honest with us in the comment section. But I still am hanging on to hope just because of how good number 9 and number 1 in particular are playing for your football team. When they play like that, you always have a chance. So this is the pinned comment of today's video. So that ad comes here on YouTube. That's totally fine. Take advantage of it. Get down in the comment section and let us know what you think. All right, let's take a look at what exactly Zach Taylor had to say on Monday in regards to two really important players on this Bengals football team. Of course, Orlando Brown Jr. and T. Higgins being those two guys who have been banged up in recent weeks and have missed some times. Taylor said, "We'll see. 48 hours. We'll get on the field Wednesday. Did a walkthrough today. Today being Monday. Obviously not today here on Tuesday. Everything was positive. We'll take those guys day to day starting on Wednesday." The Bengals really could use Higgins, of course, and Orlando Brown Jr. in this football game. Chargers, as I mentioned, are a really, really solid football team. And really, when you take a look at what Cincinnati has done without T. Higgins throughout his career in Cincinnati, they haven't won a ton of games. So you still find ways to make explosive plays in the passing game. Joe Burrow has still been absolutely phenomenal, but T. Higgins just kind of takes things to that next level. You've missed him for 3 consecutive games now with that quad injury. Missed a couple of games at the start of the year as well with the hamstring, soft tissue stuff. Very frustrating, of course, for Higgins. Hopefully Cincinnati will be able to get him back. And it did seem, with that quote, that Zach Taylor was optimistic that that would happen. As for Orlando Brown Jr., he was a limited participant in practice leading up to the game against Baltimore. Ultimately wasn't able to go, but just the fact that he's kind of worked into some practice time is a reason to be optimistic, and you certainly could use him because Cody Ford isn't exactly doing a phenomenal job holding down that left side of the offensive line. So we'll continue to monitor the situation regarding those two key starters for Cincinnati as the week progresses. All right, let's get into some keys to victory here on today's preview edition, our Tuesday preview edition of Bengals Breakdown. First up, got to find some success on the ground. Now, we talked about this going into the Baltimore game, and obviously it didn't work out, considering these are the stats that you got as far as running the football goes for this against this Baltimore Ravens football team. Chase Brown, 13 carries, 42 yards. Burrow, 2 carries, 6 yards. And you had the sneak there from your tight end, Tanner Hudson. That's just not getting it done in the run game for Cincinnati. Absolutely no doubt about that. Now, they are going to, have a bit of a more of an opportunity this week because that Ravens team is the best run defense in the National Football League. So you anticipated that they would struggle. Ultimately, that's what ended up happening as they did struggle on the ground against that Baltimore Ravens football team. This week, when you take a look at what the Chargers do defensively, you're going to have a bit of a more opportunity to get some things going. And really that key stat that I'm geared in on is that opponent yards per rush, 4.7, which is high. You can see that's 25th in the National Football League, so not a great stat there for this Chargers defense. So if you can really get Chase Brown going and he can get some, chunk plays, 5, 6, 7 yards, hopefully on first down, right? And really can, help set the tone for your drives. You might be able to have some success against this Chargers defense because there's an ability to run the football on these guys. But as we'll get into as the show progresses, this Chargers defense, Jesse Minter calling the shots, first year coming over from Michigan with Jim Harbaugh. His defense is flying around making a ton of plays. But I'm looking for Chase Brown. If he can be around that 4.7 number in this game, have some big solid chunk runs on first down in particular, set yourself up for second and short, give you some opportunities to take some shots down the field. I think that puts Cincinnati in a good spot in this game. Key to victory, number one, absolutely have to have some success on the ground, certainly a lot more than last week against Baltimore on Thursday night. We'll continue with our keys to victory here in a moment, but first, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Prize Picks because today's show is presented by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy. So if your lineup stays in play, even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup live. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. They also invented the Flex Play, not exactly what we're seeing right here. This is just the typical PrizePicks slate that we got here at Chat Sports. For the contest that is going to be on Thursday, like the more or the less than on the Jaden Daniels passing yards, really like the more than on the A.J. Brown receiving yards as well. As far as Thursday goes with our PrizePicks slate here at Chat Sports, some people at the office put that together, and we're looking for that to have some success on Thursday. But regardless, head on over to PrizePicks and download the app. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. It's PrizePicks. Run your game. Second key to victory here out of our 4 that we will get to on today's show. You got to limit the quarterback hits in this football game. Absolutely have to. Joe Burrow got blasted 13 times against Baltimore on Thursday. That just absolutely can't happen. Look, obviously this goes without saying, but if you lose Burrow, you're cooked. Any team that loses their star quarterback is in that same boat as well. But Burrow got hit way too many times against Baltimore. And by the way, Bengals got to play the Steelers twice, as I mentioned at the top of the show. Burrow's going to get hit a lot in that game. Like it or not, that's just going to be reality in those 2 games. So got to find a way to kind of limit the hits he is taking going into this bye, and hopefully he can recover after that. But taking a look at what your offensive line did as far as their PFF pass block grades go, Thursday night against Baltimore. Just absolutely terrible when you look at this from top to bottom. Did want to throw Chase Brown on here because there were some questions kind of coming into the season about his ability to have some success in the pass blocking game. And Chase Brown did a really nice job picking up some blitzes for Cincinnati. It was kind of a bright spot, a lone bright spot when it came to their pass protection in that game. Take a look at that right side of the screen, man. Cody Ford, 58.2. And then your interior has just struggled all season long. Cordell Volson and Alex Kappa. Kappa 37.6. That's just absolutely horrible. The way I like to think of this, guys, if you're in the 80s, that's an A. 70s is a B. Another good game from Karras, right? 60s is a C. 50s is a D. 40s an F. And then you got Kappa down there at 37.6. So just absolutely losing football there. Got to get that cleaned up. That's been the interior that you've been rocking with here. And they've done some good things throughout the year. Do want to give them some credit, but against elite competition, they really have struggled. And it was no different on Thursday night going up against those Baltimore Ravens. Absolutely has to be better this week against Los Angeles if you want to get a victory. Next key to victory is the defense has to step up. Now, they were doing some good things on Thursday, man. Look, Baltimore certainly was shooting themselves in the foot throughout that game as well. So make that very, very clear. But your defense really was doing a good job there at the beginning of that football game. But then, unfortunately, you had the fumble by Chase Brown, gives them the short field, and then things kind of went sideways on you from there on out. But it's going to be really critical that this Bengals defense steps up because this Chargers defense, as I mentioned, really is no joke. Again, with Jesse Minter calling the shots. Now, Joe Burrow, when he's clicking with Jamar Chase, they can go out there and beat anyone. But kind of taking the opposite approach here, the Bengals defense needs to step up because this Chargers defense is really good. Taking a look at some of these stats here, as far as opponent points per game, 13.1. That's crazy. Obviously, number 1 in the league at that margin. And they're really good at limiting teams to field goals when they are in the red zone. So that's going to be another critical part for Cincinnati in this game. Opponents only scoring touchdowns 38.89% of the time that they're in the red zone. That mark is second in the National Football League and only giving up 1.3 touchdowns per average per game, which also leads the NFL in that category as well. So the Bengals defense is really going to have to step up because there's a good chance that the Bengals offense isn't going to be able to go off like we always see them do typically over the past couple of weeks, particularly on Thursday. They were clicking, and there's just a situation where that might not be able to happen given the things that Jesse Minter's able to do defensively. I'm looking at these guys right here, your linebackers, right? Logan Wilson. I love Logan Wilson, but he has stunk this year, and he struggled last year as well. He's got to be a lot better. The Bengals, of course, opted to pay him, which in the moment I thought was an outstanding decision. and he's getting beat. The missed tackles are there for Wilson. The play that Baltimore had down the sideline, I forget off the top of my head which receiver that was for them, but Wilson had an opportunity to make a tackle, and he kind of just Olayed him, right? And linebackers have to be better. Sometimes you look at the stat sheet and you think, oh, these guys are playing fine because the linebackers always get a ton of tackles. These guys need to step up. Logan Wilson in particular has to be better, and he's got to be better with his decision-making and has to be better with his tackling as well. And it seems like every week we're bringing up these guys here as far as rushing the passer. Could the Cincinnati Bengals get to Lamar Jackson last week? No. Somebody is going to have to step up. Again, your personnel hasn't really changed. You tried to bring in Yannick Ngakoue off waivers. Unfortunately, New England had priority over you, so you're running it back here with this same group. I was, talked about Cedric Johnson perhaps getting more snaps. We saw him be active a couple of weeks ago, but on a short week in Baltimore, once again, he was inactive. So somebody's got to step up. Myles Murphy losing playing time because he hasn't done much. I don't have any belief in Joseph Osai either. So you're really running out of options there as far as rushing the passer goes. But you have to find a way to get some pressure on Justin Herbert in this game. He doesn't have a ton of weaponry, mind you. He's throwing to guys like Ladd McConkey and Quentin Johnston and Will Dissly. Like, those are his best targets. So, those guys aren't going to be able to get open necessarily constantly. Obviously, you hope the Bengals DB step up. But if you can get pressure on Herbert in this game, you're going to have an opportunity to limit them to not very many points and put you up in a good spot to have success in this football game. Another opportunity for you guys to get involved with our show here at Bengals Breakdown. What is your confidence level in the Bengals defense? Scale it for us 1 to 10 in the comment section. It kind of is a tricky question because, they were playing so good to start that game against Baltimore. Granted, Baltimore was making all kinds of, mistakes, shooting themselves in the foot constantly, but then you kind of just let it get away from you in the fourth quarter. So I think this defense has an ability to continue to take steps in the right direction, but need a big game on Sunday night. Scale it for us, your confidence level in Lou Anarumo's defense, 1 to 10 in the comment section right now. Last key to victory here for the Cincinnati Bengals. Finish the game. Something tells me, I just have a feeling that Cincinnati is going to find themselves with a lead in the fourth quarter. And when the Bengals were going on their runs, when they were going to AFC championship games, winning all kinds of football games, they were doing it because they knew how to finish. And for whatever reason this year, they cannot finish. Taking a look at these three games right here are really the most notable blown leads for Cincinnati so far this year. And it's really frustrating because you should have beat Baltimore twice and Kansas City. Arguably the two best teams in the AFC. You want to throw Buffalo in there, fine. But you're just literally a couple of plays away, a couple of silly mistakes in the fourth quarter away from winning all of these football games. You have to get back to that 2021-2022 Cincinnati Bengals style where you got a lead late and you held on to it and you finished the job and you stepped on the opposition's throat. Bengals have not been doing that. I do look to Joe Burrow a lot in this situation. Joe Burrow has been awesome for Cincinnati this year, but his worst quarter has been the fourth quarter, which typically is the money quarter for Joe Burrow. That's something that needs to get corrected going forward. Bengals got to find a way to finish this game against the Chargers on the road at SoFi. Again, I do believe Cincinnati is going to have a lead in the fourth quarter in this game. It's just a matter if they can hold on to it or if they're going to let another one squander away. And ultimately, if that happens, I think you lose the season as well if you are Cincinnati. Before we get out of here, promised a shout out at the top of our show today here at Bengals Breakdown. And how fitting. The video I took a look at that had the most likes in November so far, the most comments went to my guy, Matt. Matthew Warner, of course, hangs out with us all the time when has the opportunity to. Of course, he is serving our country right now over doing a great job, serving the United States. Obviously, really proud of the things that Matt's been able to accomplish. He hangs out with us during our watch parties when he has the opportunity to do so. And look, want to give a big shout out to Matt for being a loyal viewer here at Bengals Breakdown. Really appreciate you, Matt. Thank you for all you do for our country. Thank you for your services. And Houday, of course, Matt, really appreciate you. And we'll talk to you guys tomorrow with another edition of Bengals Breakdown.